Vito was very upset about JR's review, so he wanted to do his own review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is fine. I told him that's fine. The only thing I don't want him doing is I don't want him calling anybody out. Do your review, and the review speaks for itself, which is what he did. But yeah, he was not happy with JR's review. He felt that it needed the other side of the coin.
Whose opinion are you going to take? That of a mere child or mine?
You foolish, stupid man.
Opinion doesn't enter into it. What is.
But some people without brains do an awful lot of talking, don't they?
Oh, you should put that speech on tape.
He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way.
Hello, Chicago, hello!
Hello.
Hello! Got a drink to that?
Welcome to Alternate Reality.
It's technical.
He gave it 3 stars. Yeah.
I don't know.
No, JR gave it 2.
JR gave it 2, yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't like it all that much.
He said the thing about the whole Sharon Tate thing pissed him off more than anything. And
honestly, at the end of the film, who are you emotionally invested in? The characters you know of the whole movie, or people you see in glimpses?
Sharon Tate was prominent in the movie.
Sharon Tate is prominent in the movie, and she's fine. Polanski has almost nothing to do, but when you get to the end of it, yeah, she's fine.
I'm sure Sharon Tate would be thrilled to hear this. She's been in the grave since, 1969? I'm sure she'll be thrilled to hear that she's alive and fine now.
And in this film, she lives. In the movie, she lives.
Well, isn't that wonderful? That's one of the reasons why I haven't bothered to go see it. It's that whole Inglorious Bastards. And I hear
Thank you. That's what I'm talking about.
I hear they did the same with the Django, too.
Yes.
It's this revisionist history crap.
Yes, you can't do that. You can't. Doctor Who don't even do
that.
If
you want to...
It's
not a fable.
It's Once Upon a Time.
Yes, you know why it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Because he's ripping off Once Upon a Time in the Old West. Oh, and by the way, I can cover my ass by saying it's Once Upon a Time. It's a fable, while I'm still at it, too.
So
it covers a multitude of sins and gives him a multitude of legs up.
Yeah, but Robert Rodriguez did the same thing with Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Well, fine.
It's Once Upon a Time in.
But you know what? You're trading on that trademark. You're trading on Sergio Leone,
well,
who did both of those. America and West.
So what people will remember is that people mentioned this about this thing. Once Upon a Time in the West came out, everybody hated it. Once Upon a Time in America came out, a lot of people bitched about it. Okay. Everyone hated Once Upon a Time in the West.
Why?
They just didn't like it.
When I first saw it, I was like, this was a damn good movie.
Because it wasn't a spaghetti western with a lot of violence. It was not that.
They didn't.
Then later on, they went, hey, this is pretty good. But that was like 25 years after the film came out. The film came out. Everyone hated it.
Well, anyway, Vito had his chance to make his point, and JR made his, and so all is right with the world now. But I still have no interest in seeing the movie.
So when are they going to review the Angry Birds movie?
Angry Birds? I don't think you're the one who's going to review the Angry Birds movie.
Man!
How about The Kitchen?
Maybe The Kitchen. That might actually happen. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about something completely different. Hey, folks, it's Comic Book Man. Welcome once again to another episode of The Alternate Reality, coming to you from the Alternate Reality Comic Shop. Best little comic shop on the face of the earth, located at the intersection of 111th and Kedzie in beautiful downtown Mount Greenwood. Alternate Reality, raw new comics are always 15% off every day for everyone. Once again, I'm being joined by the dynamic duo of the one and only Rod Flash.
Hey, it's me.
And what's his face?
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Bocepheus. Today we're going to do an In Memoriam episode. We haven't done one in a while, thank God. But unfortunately, 2 deaths have happened during the course of this past week, which we probably should say something about. Bo really wanted to talk about one of them, and I think that we should also note the other one. And that, of course, is Harley Race, formerly of the AWA, formerly of the NWA, formerly of the WWF, formerly of WWE, formerly of the WCW, formerly of about a half dozen other federations. And Ernie Colon, who was an artist and editor for many, many years, from the late 60s through about 4 or 5 years ago, throughout the comic industry. He worked at DC, worked at Harvey Comics, he even worked at Atlas Comics in the mid-70s, and we're going to be talking about both of them today. Since we are doing half-hour shows, we're going to get right to it. We're going to start off with the King, Harley Race.
Handsome
Harley Race. The King, Harley Race. Harley Leland Race. Now, Harley Race was born on April 11th, 1943. He was born to 2 sharecroppers, George and Mary Race. So he came from poor stock. But when everything is said and done, he wound up being 9-time world champion. at all the federations that I just previously mentioned. And he had polio as a child, which I didn't know. He beat it. He beat polio, and he trained under Stanislav Zabisco.
No, both. And Wallach, his brother, too. He's a Zabisco kid.
Well, he got thrown out of high school at 16.
Yeah, that was the best.
He tried to break up a fight, and the principal kneed him in the back of the head.
Yeah.
Which, even at an early age, was like, you really didn't want to do that.
So he left school and fell into professional wrestling. Well, training as a professional wrestler.
Actually, he was 6'1" and 225 pounds when he got kicked out of high school.
Yeah, so he's a big boy.
And he started driving for Harry Humphrey, who Humphrey couldn't get his seat to sit in the back.
Well, that's why he was a driver. This guy was so big, he couldn't get himself around.
Calhoun. He couldn't get in the back of the car.
And that was promoter Goost Harris. At 18, he moved to Nashville and wrestled under the name of Jack Long. Yeah. And he was partnered up with John Long, which is where he got the Jack Long name from.
Wasn't his brother.
And they were the Long brothers. They had nothing.
We're the Long brothers.
They were no relation.
They even look alike.
No relation to each other, but they won the Southern Tag Team Championship. He got into a car accident then about a year or two later. His first wife was killed in that car accident, and he almost lost his leg. As a matter of fact, the doctors at the hospital getting ready to amputate his leg. Somebody came in and stopped the doctors.
It was Karras. It was Karras. He was one of the guys. He basically said, "You're not cutting this kid's leg off."
Yeah, that would have been the end of his career.
Yeah.
If that happened. But he recovered, and in 1964 he moved to the Texas Territory, what was run by Terry Funk. Yes, that Terry Funk.
The Terry Funk. The Double Cross Ranch.
Amarillo, Texas.
That was the first place he wrestled as Harley Race, and Terry Funk told him, don't wrestle as anyone else, wrestle as yourself. Wrestle as Harley Race. And that was when he started doing that. While down there, he met up with Larry Hennig.
Kurt Hennig's dad. The two of them tag teamed, and they moved to AWA as a tag team.
That was when I started watching.
Yeah, Harley Race was on back then. And they became the tag team champions. Handsome Harley Race and Pretty Boy Larry Hennig.
And they were in the AWA from 1965 to 1986 intermittently. I think he wandered to a couple other federations. Predominantly, he was with the AWA.
Yeah, Vern Gagne liked him, even though he was a heel to Vern, but they said, "No, I'm going to keep you around. I'm going to keep hanging around because you guys are really good heels. Everyone hates you, and that's what we want. We want people to want to throw batteries at you.
I remember watching
and hit you in the head with hammers, and and spit on you and throw stuff at you."
Yes, Harley Race was very much a heel for most of his career. Not all of his career, but for most of his career, was a heel.
Now, in 1970, he moved to the NWA. He basically bounced around, and then he went to Kansas City, where he ended up living.
Wasn't he Mad Dog Harley Race then?
Well, he was trying to be Mad Dog, but they were like, it sounds pretty stupid. And it didn't last long because it was dumb. Because he wrestled Dory Funk back then.
It was a big feud he had.
Yeah, he also, at that point, that's the first time he went to Japan, and he wrestled Giant Baba, which must have been a lot of work, because Baba was just this big, gangly guy. And the Race is a small, stocky guy against this guy who looks like a skyscraper. And it's like, okay, how do you get these two styles to mix? It doesn't really work out that way. But they had matches together because Baba could wrestle with anybody, and so could Race. He also worked in Stampede Wrestling. He was champion multiple times in the NWA. Went all over the world. He even defended the U.S. Heavyweight Championship, which is now the U.S. Championship, which we don't see in the WWE anymore. In 1977... he finally got to face off against Funk, and the two of them had a feud. Everyone loved Funk. Everyone didn't like Race. They were switching back and forth. They were fighting. Blood, guts, zippers. It was just violent.
Zippers.
Well, heads. Popping heads open.
Oh, okay. Zippering heads.
It was really, really violent. And that was when Race got the reputation of being one of the toughest guys in wrestling, because if you hung out in the locker room with Harley Race, he carried a gun.
Yeah, I read that.
And if you wanted to start a fight, he would basically pull off that gun. And you'd go, oh, I left something in my car. I have to go. He was also very protective of young wrestlers. He would go make sure these guys got paid. And if you were promoted didn't pay a guy, Race would be knocking on your door with that gun in his hand going, you better give these boys their money.
These boys got some money coming to them.
These boys need to get their money. And reporters were smart enough to go, he probably would shoot me. Because it said he was a really nice, friendly guy.
Mad Dog Harley Race.
He had an aura of a guy who would probably break your leg just because he wanted to.
Then after that, he started a feud with Ric Flair.
Woo!
Woo! The
and
Nature
the two of them
Boy.
had long, great classic matches where they'd go for an hour.
And if you look at the matches and see them fight, you think those guys can't stand each other. Best of friends.
They loved each other. They would go out drinking after the show. And
oh my God, I can imagine them.
And okay, you already know Flair could drink.
Yeah.
Race could drink just as much as Flair could. They go to a bar, close the bar down, and you show up in the next town the next night, and you go, didn't you guys go out drinking last night? And didn't you guys close the bar? You never would know it.
Because they knew how to hold their liquor back then.
Hold. You drank everything in the bar, more or less. But you would sleep, sit out in the sun, and drink a lot of water, and you'd just go back in and work.
You can't beat that.
You can't beat that with a stick.
1985, he finally migrated over to WWF, now WWE, but WWF, managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan. And I would assume that all that kayfabe stuff ended by the time he came to WWE, because Vince was very anal about kayfabe.
He was.
You don't break it.
Yeah, you guys don't.
None of this hanging out together.
You guys, well, no, they were still hanging out and drinking.
Well, you don't close down bars where people can see.
You don't get caught.
They were smart enough not to get caught.
This was before the internet, before you can go snap a picture of a wrestler.
Right.
Oh, look, I got a picture of Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant talking to Harley Race in the bar.
They were smart enough to not go to the bars together and leave together. So you never saw the two of them hanging out together. And Vince fell in love with Race. He loved him.
We're going to do this thing called King of the Ring.
Yeah.
And what better person to give it to?
King Harley Race.
King Harley Race. He was the first King of the Ring.
First or second. With Race, he would put on the crown and the robe, and you look at him and you'd go, okay, for most people this would probably be funny, but if I laughed at him, he'd probably kick my ass.
Well, that was a funny thing. Yeah, when Race put on the crown and the robe, and he'd do promos with wearing the crown and the robe. You could tell nobody made fun of him.
No,
because everybody knew about
it.
He looked
like an idiot.
Right, he looked silly as hell. Yeah, but you look at him and go, "That's Harley Race. I'm not laughing at him. He may beat me up."
And he'd stand there and he'd do promos, dead serious, with that stupid outfit on.
Looking right into the camera.
For some reason, every time I saw him, he looked like he had a crowbar behind his back.
Well,
for some reason, because
they gave him the crown and the cape, but they also gave him a mace.
Yeah.
And he would hit people with the mace.
He'd whack people with it because with his character. And he was dead serious all the time.
But it wasn't a mace. I mean, he didn't have a ball at the top. It was more of an ornamental, golden thing. But yeah, he had no problem hitting you in the head with the damn thing.
He didn't care.
If he could use it to his advantage in a match.
He's like the prototype bad guy. If I remember correctly, the bad guys on the WWF at the time, they were like big, gigantic, monstrous looking guys, and here you got this guy.
Race was built like a spark plug.
The problem with Harley Race was, Hulk Hogan was made for TV.
Yeah.
Harley Race was not.
No, Race was not.
Not in any way, shape, or form.
Race looked like an old school
Race
wrestler.
was more of the Dick the Bruiser kind of
exactly.
look.
And,
over at the International Amphitheater on a Saturday night.
He looked like he belonged in the AWA or the NWA. He did not look like he belonged in the WWE, which is probably one of the reasons why Vince made him the King of the Ring. Yeah. Because as soon as you do that, you put the goofy outfit on him, you've made him into a superhero, whether he wants to be one or not. He's wearing this outfit, and he's calling himself the King of the Ring, and I am the King. I am King Harley Race.
King Harley Race.
And all of a sudden, you can make an action figure.
It's like, okay, yeah, we can sell
I do remember the action figure. The King Harley Race action figure.
As time went on, of course, he stopped wrestling. He became a manager.
Yes,
he
I remember
managed
the
Lex Luger.
When Luger was the seventh wonder of the world.
And he also managed Vader.
One of my favorite villains of all time.
And the coolest thing about it when he was managing Vader was he would stand there and do the promos. And Vader would be in the back doing that gorilla thing. And you'd be looking at Vader going, what the hell is he doing? But I got to pay attention to what Race is saying, but he's... Race had one issue in 1992 when he was managing Vader. He said a line to Ron Simmons.
I remember the line very well.
When I was the world champion, I had a boy like you to carry my bags. Now, that was not a line he wrote. That was a line Bill Watts, the booker, did to make you feel sorry for Simmons. And the problem was some people didn't take that very well.
And
but
Race got labeled as
Race got labeled as, and people went, no, he's not. And he also, during that particular point in time, he developed friendship with Mick Foley, Steve Austin. In 1995, he left the wrestling business because he had a car accident.
Another car accident?
And we had to have his hip replaced.
Ooh.
And so after having your hip replaced, you don't wrestle anymore. And so he disappeared after 1995. He popped back up in the WWE in 2004 after going to the Hall of Fame. And his first appearance was at Randy Orton spitting in his face because that was the beginning of the Legend Killer angle.
Have Randy Orton going out there beating up old wrestlers.
In 2004, he went to TNA as a member of their championship committee, although he didn't really do anything. He was just sort of there as a figurehead, just to be on camera, just to sit around and do nothing. But he didn't do any wrestling anymore. And that was it. Later on, he had a lot of physical issues, a lot of problems, a lot of surgeries. Near the end of his life, he couldn't afford to pay his medical bills. Vince McMahon paid his medical bills. He couldn't afford to get to the hospital. Miss McMahon sent a plane down to fly him to the hospital, take him to the doctor's office, make sure he got what he wanted, and then fly him back home in Kansas City, where he would live. And every time the WWE went to Kansas City, people would make it a point to go to Harley Race's house.
Harley's house.
And
That's
they would
what
hang
they
out with
call
Harley.
it. There's a wonderful story that Dustin Rhodes, Goldust, has said about the fact that the wrestlers are always traveling.
Yeah.
And anytime they would wind up in Kansas City, go to Harley's house.
Everyone
go
went
to
to
Harley's
Harley's
house. And he'd go out there and have this big, gigantic barbecue and basically let them sit there because he knew for a fact that these guys, they couldn't afford the 5-star hotels and nobody wants to stay in a shack hotel either. So come stay at Harley's house for a couple of days there.
And he also trained a lot of wrestlers, too. Trevor Murdoch.
Triple H, too.
Triple
He
H,
trained Triple
yeah, he
H
trained
and
Triple H
China.
and China.
On August 1st of this year, he died of terminal lung cancer. Ric Flair made the announcement.
Actually, thinking about that point, Race did promos where he was smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
So he basically knew
And
already.
and some of them with the WWE, he's wearing the King of the Ring outfit, and he's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. I remember those things. I'm like, he's smoking.
I'm sure Vince loved that.
He wouldn't tell him no. He's smoking.
Okay, and that's King Harley Race. Our condolences go out to his family and loved ones that have survived him. And we're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Ernie Colon, who passed away this week.
Every Sunday is super at Alternate Reality with our Super Sunday Sale. Each Sunday we pick a different character, family, or publisher, and we discount all of their comics and trade paperbacks 25% off all day long. What we pick for the sale is different each week, but each Sunday you'll save 25% off. And that's all day long, all day Sunday, only at Alternate Reality.
And we're back. Artist and editor Ernie Colon passed away this week, August 8th, as a matter of fact. He was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico on July 13th, 1931. There isn't a lot that's out there on his early days. His first professional work was for Harvey Comics, where he was uncredited, on Richie Rich and Casper.
Also uncredited.
Well, that was his work. It was uncredited. He was penciler on those two. His first credited work was on Whammo Giant #1. The Whammo toy company did a comic. They did a couple of comics over the course of years. They're all like promotional comics. But he did Whammo Giant #1 in 1967. That was his first official credit as an artist. After that, he worked on Dr. Solar at Gold Key. He worked a lot at Warren Publishing on Creepy Eerie Vampirilla from the very late 60s through the early 70s. He created the Grim Ghost at Atlas Comics, the upstart rival company that Larry Lieber started to run against his brother Stan.
Which means he could get a movie credit if they actually turn it into movies, because people own the licenses. They bought them.
Yeah.
Paramount bought the license to all those books.
Well, all those books, yeah, the Atlas ones, they changed hands. There was a big news story about 7-8 years ago. You know, all that stuff. Phoenix, Grim Ghost, Planet of the Vampires. Those are a bunch of characters that Atlas came up with. None of them ran more than 4 issues.
But
they were all.
I got a couple of them.
No, I just thought of one. Scorpion. Which was one of the first things that Howard Chaykin did.
Yeah.
He got a job then at Marvel, and he adapted Battlestar Galactica. The first 3 issues of Battlestar Galactica is an adaptation of the original Glenn Larson TV series pilot, which he did with Roger McKenzie, which formed the basis of the Battlestar Galactica next 18 issues or so that they did after that. Walt Simonson did a lot of work on that.
Yeah, he did.
Early work. They did a ton of covers. And I think he was the artist on the book after Ernie Colon left.
Yeah, he was.
He was also an editor at DC Comics from 1982 to 1985. He worked on Flash, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman. But his big accomplishments are, while he was at DC, in 1981, he co-created Eric, Son of Thunder with Roy Thomas. Now,
where is Eric now?
Eric, Son of Thunder was a twist. Vikings come over to the New World at some time in the 1200s. And Eric is a young warrior who goes with them back to Europe. And one of the things that allowed them to do was mix the Indian culture along with the European culture at the time, and mix in mythology, and mix in gods, and mix in sword and sorcery, and even at one point mix in some time travel. And yes, Eric was essentially a Conan ripoff. Roy Thomas came over to DC in 81 off of a long stint on Conan the Barbarian, going all the way back to
what do you got? And he went, well, I got this.
Well, why don't I do Conan? He said, we can't do Conan. How about you make up a new character just like Conan?
Okay. All right, works for me.
Okay, having said that, yeah, a lot of it was derivative. He did put some work into the concept. It's a Native American. He gets found by Vikings, gets taken back to Europe, and he gets to play with not only Native American gods and spirits and and cultures, and he's a warrior, but he also gets to play with all the European stuff. Let's go to Greece, we'll meet Greek gods. Let's go to Sweden, we'll meet Norse gods. Let's go to Romania, we'll meet Dracula. You know, all that stuff. You go all over Europe. So you have this fish out of water, stranger in a strange land centerpiece to the entire series. And Ernie Colon, that was his big book with it.
And I never bought a single issue of it.
Well, good for you.
I saw it, there was an insert in Warlord. I remember that and went, I have no interest.
Warlord 48.
Yeah.
DC used to do that. They would do inserts into comics. Like DC Comics Presents, I think it was 25, was the first appearance of the new Teen Titans. It was an insert.
And you bought this and you go, well, what's this? This is something new. Okay. Well, I should follow this where it goes somewhere else.
And it was a whole free comic.
Yeah.
Eric was the same way.
Yeah. They did the same thing with Amethyst.
Amethyst is his other big thing that he did over at DC. Amethyst Princess of Jedworld, he did that with writer Gary Cohn and Dan Mishkin. It was a maxi series, and then it graduated to a 16-issue regular series. It had an annual and a special. She did a DC Comics Presents appearance with Superman. I think it was number 63.
And she's hanging out with the Justice League today.
And she's hanging out with the Justice League today. In the Crisis on Infinite Earths, she went blind. That was the thing they did with her because they didn't know what to do with her, so they blinded her, thinking that would bring the character more depth. She was missing in action for the most part until 2005 when they did Sword and Sorcery comic book for the New 52. She was the central character in that. That lasted all of, I think, 8 to 10 issues.
Yeah, because there was a small part of fandom that really wanted the character to come back. And literally a small.
She's one of those characters that's always had a small but fairly loyal following behind her.
Yeah, I remember reading those issues, and I didn't, I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting.
Conceptually, there's nothing wrong with the concept. The problem with Amethyst Princess of the Gemworld is it's basically a series that's aimed at young girls, and they keep trying to squeeze her into the Justice League mold. And the character just doesn't work like that. And that's the problem they've had from the beginning. This is a character that ought to appeal to girls age 8 to 16. And instead, they're trying to make her appeal to guys from 25 to 40. And it just doesn't work.
And one big fan of the character is Brian Bendis, because he's got her in Young Justice.
She's in Young Justice right now. She has also been in other media. She was in DC Nation for a short animated one-shot that was very manga looking. She's also in Teen Titans Go to the Movies, very briefly. Yeah, they keep threatening to bring her back and doing something with her. Like I said, the thing to do with her, make a girl's book out of her. That's where her audience lies. And they've never been able to do it successfully.
That would have been like a Zoom or Ink book when Zoom and Ink was an actual line. Now it's part of the DC Kids. Yeah, it's a kid's book. It's a kid's character.
After Amethyst and after Eric and after doing some editing work at DC, he moved over to Marvel. 1988, with Dwayne McDuffie, he created Damage Control, which is the group in the Marvel Universe that cleans up after supervillain battles.
Which is now evil.
But which wasn't when it first started off. It was goofy when it first started.
They were goofy and silly. Oh, they're picking up the garbage.
Basically, Hi, here we're to clean up the garbage.
Yeah, the city got blown up. We're here to fix it.
We're the garbage men of the Marvel Universe. You get a building knocked down. Here's our bill for removal, demolition, and rebuilding.
We're fixing it.
That's what they do. And they rolled in some goofy characters. I seem to remember there was one character there, a super-powered guy with a jackhammer or something.
The guy walked around in a Dago tee and some suspenders and a hat, and he wore a helmet. None of them were memorable. But at the point, they were just goofy.
But before you poo-poo Damage Control too much, they were in Spider-Man Homecoming at the beginning. They're the ones that take all the cleanup operations away from the Vulture and the Tinkerer at the beginning. Okay, well, guys, thanks a lot for your help. It's time for you to leave. Damage Control is here to take over.
Taking your stuff.
And so Damage Control shows up and kicks him out, which is the Damage Control's first appearance, I think, in the Marvel Universe.
There was at one point supposed to be ABC was going to do a half-hour sitcom based on Damage Control. I think that sitcom is dead.
Yeah, but you said that they're going to become an evil group. That's in the movies, isn't it?
No.
Or is that going to be in the comics?
That's Hickman. Hickman basically said they're evil.
So
the X-Men books are evil.
Oh, was that in House and Powers?
Yeah, it's in House and Powers. They're evil. Okay. They're taking all this tech and they're doing bad things.
They took Tony Stark and Reed Richards' stuff that they left behind and claiming it for themselves.
It's ours. Even though you didn't make this, it's ours.
It's ours. He was dead.
He's dead, and it's ours. He was off of Earth. That means it's all ours.
Okay, in 2006, he did the 9/11 Commission report graphic adaptation. Basically, what he did was he took the 9/11 report and he made a graphic novel. He illustrated, but he illustrated what the commission found.
Yeah,
he wasn't rolling in characters or anything. He was basically doing a history comic. a biography comic. In 2009, he did a biography comic on Che Guevara.
Yes.
And in 2010, he did another one on Anne Frank.
Anne Frank.
He died of cancer. Another one who died of cancer. Harley Race had lung cancer. I'm not sure which cancer Ernie Colon had that took him, but he died of cancer this past week.
I think of pancreatic cancer, I think.
Pancreatic cancer?
I think it was pancreatic. I think.
And that was the career of Ernie Colon.
He's 88 years old.
Rodney, you have anything you want to add?
It's always thrilling to have something that you create to outlast you. So Ernie Colon can be happy with the fact that Damage Control is going to go on for a while.
I got a feeling if you're on your deathbed, you'd be happy to trade that in for another year. Yeah, I'd go for another year.
I want to nap.
Yeah, I'd go for one more year of life. Say, my creation lives on.
Maybe he just had a good run.
Then again, well, it's hard to say this, but he lived longer than Dwayne McDuffie. So.
Dwayne McDuffie wound up doing more work and becoming more famous, partly because he hooked himself up with Justice League Animated Series.
Yeah, and
he did a lot of work on the Justice League Animated and the rest of the DC Animated stuff. He worked on Superman and Batman, too.
Well, you got to the part where he's in his 70s and 80s. There's not a lot of work out here for a comic creator who's that old. Companies aren't exactly busting their butts to go out and hire you, so that's why he's doing these graphic novels.
Ernie Colon, I always thought, had a very interesting style. It was definitely a style that was an acquired taste. There was nothing wrong with his style. A lot of heavy blacks, a lot of Van Dykes on men. A lot of Van Dykes on men. Sort of an anime influence with the girls. I like the style. It wasn't something that you would naturally come to. Very much in the mold of all of the rest of the Filipino South American artists that came along around that period. He did work, like I said, at Creepy Eerie and the rest of the Warren books. It was very much in that style. When I think of Ernie Colon's work, even though he did Amethyst and Arak, I always think of black and white. I don't think of color. And as far as Arak goes, what you were saying before, it was basically Roy Thomas trying to do Conan over at DC. But there is something to that concept of taking a Native American and taking them out of here and over into Europe. It's what it wound up happening to Pocahontas in the real world. Pocahontas eventually left here, went to Europe, had a very miserable life from what I remember reading. It was nothing like the storybook or the Disney thing, but she wound up going to Europe, becoming an object of great curiosity, and ultimately having a very miserable life.
Choosing non-elephant man. Look at her, it's Pocahontas. She's kind of weird. What do we do? I don't know.
But you take a character like Arak, who's a warrior, Native American warrior, and you dump him in with a bunch of European warriors during the 12th century. There's something to work with there. There really is. I think the big problem with that was Roy Thomas. I think he came up with a fairly good twist on that concept, but he was locked into doing Conan. And that's all it became, was derivative Conan.
It's Conan. It's like, well, we can just read Conan over here. What are we read this for?
Well, and to be honest with you, Roy Thomas had played out Conan a couple of years before he came up. By the time you got past Belit, you were done with Conan. And Conan went on for like another 100 issues after that with Roy Thomas.
It just kept going.
There was nothing left to Conan anymore once
the
he got
book
done
just kept going.
But it was a concept that him and Ernie Colon came up with. So, anyway, that's Ernie Colon. Our condolences, of course, go out to his family and his loved ones, those who survived him. Thank you.
You know what's weird about that? There is no mention of anyone who survived him. We don't know if he had any kids, if he was married. We don't know anything about him at all.
That would tend to tell me that he was a very private person, which is fine. But our condolences do go out to his family, and thank you, Ernie, for the many, many years of enjoyment you brought to the rest of us. And that's going to do it for us. We're done. We're finished. We're out of here. We've got no more time for show today, but please go to the store's website, myalternatereality.com, where you will find more of JR and Vito's reviews, like as we talked about at the beginning of the show, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You'll also find Bo's News. You'll find the store's videos that I do, the shipping videos. You'll also find information about sales and much, much more. MyAlternateReality.com. Until next time, Rod.
So long, kiddies. Come back for more.
Until next time, Bo.
So long, boys and girls.
And until next time, this is me saying, as always, bye! Thanks a lot for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please like and share it with all your friends. We value your feedback, so drop us a question, comment, show idea, or complaint either at arcomics@msn.com or, if provided, in the comments section down below on this platform. The opinions expressed in this episode are solely those of the individuals and not necessarily those of Alternate Reality Incorporated. This show is, as always, coming to you from the Alternate Reality Comic Shop, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Mount Greenwood at the intersection of 111th and Kedzie, serving Chicago comics fandom since 1994.
You want to take it from the top?
Yeah, let's try it.